Всім добрий вечір.
On behalf of the brave.
On behalf of every father and every mother.
Wings for freedom. On behalf of our warriors.
And paves the way for a new history.
Hello and welcome to Tochnyi Weekly, the show that gets behind the headlines to discuss the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We have an excellent broadcast for you today. First, I will provide the weekly news report. We will then go to our contributor Vasyl, a resident of the city of Dnipro in Ukraine, to discuss the recent Russian terror attacks on the city. Next, we have a discussion between our contributor German Aid to Ukraine and contributor Bionade about some recent news regarding German vehicle deliveries to Ukraine, and that will be followed by our usual German Aid report. So now I will present the news. First item, on February 14th, a landing ship, the Caesar Kunikov, was hit and sunk in the Black Sea. The main intelligence department of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, HUR, released a video showing a group of Magra V5 kamikaze unmanned surface vessels, or USVs, attacking the Caesar Kunikov while it was stationary. The attack resulted in critical damage to the ship, which began to sink after receiving critical holes on the left side. The Caesar Kunikov, or BDK-64, was a Project 775 Ropucha-1 class large landing ship of the Russian Navy, built in Poland and launched in 1986. The ship had a displacement of around 4,000 tons when fully loaded and measures about 112 meters in length. It could carry up to 340 troops along with tanks and APCs. It was armed with 57 millimeter guns, surface-to-air missile launchers, and Grad rocket launchers to conduct strikes on the land. Ukraine's military confirmed the sinking of the Caesar Kunikov amphibious ship approximately 4 kilometers off Alupka, a city on the southern edge of the Crimean Peninsula. HUR's Group 13 has taken responsibility for the operation. The sinking of the Caesar Kunikov is a significant blow to the Russian Black Sea Fleet, notably reducing the operational capacity of the fleet to only 5 of the original 13 serviceable ships. Of course, like this one incident is one of many in which Ukraine has sunk Russian warships using both missiles like Storm Shadow and previously their own Neptune missiles, and also these drones, which are illustrated in the footage. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, when asked about the comment, directing all inquiries to the Russian Ministry of Defense, which as of now, to my knowledge, hasn't commented on the incident. Next item. In the Kherson Oblast occupied region at the small town of Kalanchak, there have been reports of the torture and murder of local priest Stefan Podolchak by Russian military forces. This was disclosed by Ukraine's Center for Journalistic Investigations on February 16th. Svetlana Fomina, who leads the administration in Kalanchak, reported on February 14th that Russian forces forcibly entered the residence of the priest, who is a 59-year-old rector of the local Orthodox Church of Ukraine, and abducted him to an undisclosed location. 2 days later, on February 15th, his spouse received a summons to identify the body of her late husband. The priest originated from Lviv Oblast, and he relocated to Kalanchak, where, alongside his parishioners, he dedicated over a decade of his life to building the church there. His unwavering support for Ukraine was evident because he consistently held services in Ukrainian and offered prayers for the nation, even during the occupation. It's likely for these reasons he was targeted specifically by Russia. Despite the ongoing occupation, he did continue to lead services in Ukrainian, and he faced several summons by the FSB for discussions aimed at pressuring him to switch allegiance to the Moscow Patriarchate, which he consistently rebuffed. And this is a continuing effort by Russia to force priests into their own church organization, which, of course, is dominated by Russian intelligence services to the point where the patriarchy, the Moscow Patriarchate, was himself an intelligence agent. So next item. Nearly $500,000 or $500,000 US dollars in forfeited Russian funds seized by the United States due to the dismantling of an illegal procurement network aimed at smuggling some sophisticated US machinery into Russia has been earmarked to instead aid Ukraine. This is the second time such funds have been allocated for Ukraine following a previous transfer of $5.4 million for the support of Ukrainian war veterans. The legal basis for the transfers were solidified when President Joe Biden signed a law in late 2022, allowing the Department of Justice to redirect some forfeited assets to the State Department for the purpose of aiding Ukraine. This legislation was part of a broader initiative by the US government to target the financial networks of Russian oligarchs attempting to circumvent sanctions through a task force that they named KleptoCapture. This was launched by Garland in response to the 2022 Russian invasion. Estonia will act as an intermediary to expedite the process, and they will utilize the funds to conduct damage assessment and critical repairs of Ukraine's electrical distribution and transmission system, which have been targeted by Russian forces. A Latvian citizen involved in the procurement scheme pleaded guilty to violating U.S. export laws. This individual admitted to conspiring to smuggle high-precision machine tools to Russia and is awaiting sentencing. The investigation involved multiple agencies from the United States, Latvia, and Estonia, and the cooperation led to the interception of the smuggled machinery and subsequent funds, which will now go to Ukraine. Next item, please. The Ukrainian armed forces made a strategic decision to withdraw from the city of Avdiivka. This decision came after intense fighting and considerable pressure from Russian forces aiming to capture the eastern city. Avdiivka is known for its industrial significance and close proximity to the Russian-occupied city of Donetsk. It's been the focal point of military operations in the area, drawing comparisons to the prolonged and grueling battle for Bakhmut previously, which Russia captured after months of combat and heavy losses. The 3rd Assault Brigade of Ukraine, which had previously fought in the Battle of Bakhmut, was deployed to Avdiivka, facing what they described as a threatening and unstable situation. The city's defense had been robust, with Ukrainian forces making use of fortified positions, including concrete bunkers and tower blocks, which made direct assaults particularly costly for attacking Russian forces. The fighting in Avdiivka has been marked by heavy casualties. Ukrainian and Western military analysts have noted the high casualty rates among Russian forces, highlighting the fierce resistance offered by Ukrainian defenders. The decision to withdraw came after frequent reports Ukrainian forces do not have enough shells to respond to the attacks from 2 separate Russian armies focused on taking the city, demonstrating a critical need for Ukraine's allies to supply the embattled nation with a significantly larger quantity of artillery ammunition. Ukrainian forces began withdrawing from Avdiivka as Russian forces continued to advance, with Ukrainian Commander-in-Chief Syrskyi stating that early on February, he ordered the withdrawal to more favorable defensive position. The decision was aimed, in his words, at avoiding encirclement and preserving the lives of Ukrainian personnel. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu claimed that Russian forces had established full control over Avdiivka as of February 17th, and this statement was made as Ukrainian forces likely completed their withdrawal from the area. Next item. Spanish Defense Minister Margarita Robles announced a package of military aid for Ukraine, including the rapid transfer of M113 APC vehicles. The announcement came during the 19th meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, alongside the M113 vehicles, probably a better way to say it, two of which have been adapted into medical vehicles. Spain plans to provide Ukraine with fire trucks, snow removal vehicles, 2 light naval vessels, a power generator, and a water treatment plant. Robles highlighted the success of the Ukrainian military's training in Spain, which covers the use of systems such as Patriot, NASAMS, and Hawk, all air defense systems, as well as underwater demining. She mentioned Spain's involvement in 6 coalitions supporting Ukraine, emphasizing the importance of these efforts in achieving full interoperability between Ukrainian armed forces and their allies and partners. The M113 armored personnel carrier is known for its versatility and widespread use, and represents the second batch sent to Ukraine by Spain in the last 6 months. Spain has also committed to training about 4,000 Ukrainian troops, which is double the number that was originally planned, and they will offer additional courses for Ukraine's defenders in the upcoming year. This week, Ukraine's Air Force successfully shot down 3, actually 4, as of this morning, Russian Su-34 fighter bombers over the southern front. These aircraft were brought down on Friday morning, and one more this morning, reportedly by Patriot anti-aircraft missiles near Ukraine's Kherson bridgehead over the river Dnipro. Ukrainian officials, including Alexei Danilov, Secretary of Ukraine's Security Council, highlighted the strategic importance of neutralizing these jets, which had been posing significant threats to Ukrainian forces. The Su-34 is known for its ability to carry out strikes on targets up to 600 miles away with a significant payload, making it a notable setback to lose this aircraft for Russian military efforts. Despite the downing of these aircraft, the pilot's conditions remain unreported, although some Russian telegram sources have shown photos of at least one pilot being ejected successfully and being rescued by Russian forces. It was reported, I mentioned that, it was reported this morning that an additional Su-34 was downed by Ukrainian forces. The Su-34 is among Russia's most sophisticated aircraft, capable of conducting strikes on targets up to 600 miles away with a payload of 12 tons of bombs and missiles. Russia is believed to have had around 150 Su-34s prior to the invasion, with 20 other Su-34s reported shot down by Ukraine before the events that were described. Ukrainian Air Force Commander Lieutenant General Mykola Oleschuk characterized the operation as brilliantly planned, and it reflects a high degree of coordination and skill, which was involved in advanced aircraft. Next item. French President Emmanuel Macron, following discussions with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Paris, announced a comprehensive military aid package and a bilateral security agreement. This package is aimed at enhancing Ukraine's defensive capabilities and includes artillery shells, Caesar artillery systems, and augmented air defense capabilities. Further emphasizing its commitment, France has decided to double its supply of 155mm artillery shells to Ukraine, increasing deliveries to about 2,000 shells per month, starting from the end of March 2023. This increase in ammunition supply is critical for Ukraine as it navigates a war of attrition with Russian forces. The ramp-up in artillery shell deliveries has been facilitated through a collaborative effort with Australia, where Canberra is supplying the gunpowder necessary for French arms manufacturer Nexter to produce these shells. The explosives for this artillery ammunition is in rather short supply in a lot of places, so this is one reason that this partnership is critical. Moreover, France is exploring the possibility of enhancing a financial mechanism designed to allow Ukraine to purchase additional French weapons. This comes after the full allocation of an initial 200 million euro fund dedicated to this purpose. And that means that they used up that entire fund, so they're considering adding additional euros to it. Demonstrating further support, France is also planning to supply Ukraine with a new package of light AMX-10 RC armored combat vehicles, following the completion of an initial delivery previously. These vehicles are expected in the coming months. In addition to these measures, France has detailed a security pact with Ukraine, aiming to solidify extended military cooperation. This pact includes a provision of around 40 Scalp EG cruise missiles and reportedly hundreds of bombs, marking a significant enhancement of Ukraine's long-range strike capabilities. The language stated in the agreement as part of a broader war economy effort by France to increase the production and supply of military equipment to Ukraine, including Caesar howitzers, which the Ukrainians have expressed a particular desire for. I should just mention, as maybe an editorial statement, I think war economy is maybe pushing it a bit. But it's definitely good to see an increase in French production. While the specifics of the security pact are not fully disclosed, President Zelensky has stated it is similar to the one negotiated previously with the UK, and it does at least include the following provisions. As mentioned, France will supply long-range strike capabilities, the Scalp EG cruise missiles and bombs. I believe John actually mentioned the specific bombs that France would probably be manufacturing for Ukraine in a previous broadcast. The French defense industry will be operating under a war economy to increase vital military equipment, including 155 shells and howitzers. Beyond the provision of military hardware, the pact includes training and airspace protection. France has emphasized swift delivery of military aid, planning to transfer equipment almost in real time. Again, this is like the language that the French used in the treaty. Scheduled meetings between French and Ukrainian defense ministers. So they're supposed to have regular meetings that should facilitate direct dialogue about how they can better coordinate their efforts. Very good news coming out of France. Also, Germany recently signed a bilateral pact. Basically, I think Denmark is also exploring one. So a lot of European nations are working towards establishing bilateral security pacts with Ukraine, which is very positive development. It's sort of, from what I can tell, these are really formalizing a lot of what's been going on kind of in an ad hoc basis in the past. To be a little bit more of a formal, routinized and more regularized situation. So it's good to see this occurring. Next item. So my final item for the report, the Royal United Services Institute for Defense and Security Studies, we don't usually hear the full name, it's also known as RUSI, recently published a report titled Russian Military Objectives and Capacity in Ukraine through 2024. The following is a summary of the findings from that report. Russia's primary goal as of 2024 is the subjugation of Ukraine, with military efforts directed towards achieving this. Surrender terms proposed by Russian intermediaries include Ukraine ceding territory already under Russian control, agreeing not to join NATO, and accepting a head of state approved by Russia. Russia's plan is divided into 3 stages: ongoing pressure to drain Ukrainian resources, breaking international support for Ukraine, and initiating further offensives to gain leverage for future negotiations. The timeline for this plan extends into 2026, with potential for expanded objectives if successful. The Russian military has seen an increase in troop numbers, rising to approximately 470,000 troops by 2024. With organizational improvements planned. Real quick, sorry. For the footage, obviously, there's no real, film footage I could find for this report that was just released. Maybe if you could skip ahead in the footage a bit. I just found this is sort of like number breakdowns. For some reason, though, there's like all this fancy animation at the beginning. I don't know why that's necessary. So yeah, this would be better, this type of stuff. But I thought this would maybe be a good kind of like big picture type stuff to be looking at while we go through this report. So sorry about that, folks. The Russian military has seen an increase in the troop numbers, as I mentioned, rising to approximately 470,000 from an initial 190,000 depicted in the graphic. However, force quality remains challenged by attrition. Russian forces operate under a traditional Soviet order of battle. I take that to mean that the BTG the tactical group, I think it's called, is not functioning as planned, but I'm not totally sure what they mean by Soviet order battle. Conducting smaller tactical operations to maintain pressure on Ukrainian forces. Equipment sets, including artillery, tanks, and aircraft, are limited by ammunition shortages and a reliance on Western components. Despite these challenges, Russian recruitment efforts are meeting targets, and they are projected to sustain their current rate of attrition in personnel through 2025. On the industrial front, Russia has mobilized its defense industry to increase production, delivering tanks, armored vehicles, and missiles to its forces. However, there are limits and reliability of this output, with a significant portion of armored vehicles being refurbished rather than newly produced. Dependency on Western components for complex weapons also poses many vulnerabilities for Russian war production. Ammunition manufacture is a critical limitation, with shortages expected to impact combat operations in 2025. Russia has signed supply contracts with other nations, such as North Korea and Iran, to compensate for these shortages, but a shortfall in production remains a distinct possibility. The document concludes by emphasizing the importance of Ukraine's international partners in supporting the Ukrainian armed forces to counter Russian objectives. It suggests that continued assistance to Ukraine could undermine Russian gains, potentially shifting the balance of power in Ukraine's favor. Ensuring Ukraine's resistance through 2025 is deemed crucial for countering Russian objectives and creating opportunities for favorable negotiations by challenging Russia's understanding of the war's current trajectory. So that concludes my report of all of the news for this week. But we did have, of course, some very bad strikes on Dnipro, the city of Dnipro, this week. And we actually have a contributor to Tochnyi, Vasyl, who lives in the city of Dnipro. So we just thought we'd give Vasyl an opportunity to just maybe give a report on the recent strikes on his city and kind of what's been going on there. So Vasyl, I'll turn it over to you. You're welcome to share with the audience whatever you'd like.
Hello all, I'm Vasyl. I'm a lawyer from Dnipro, and I want to tell you about this week, how it was for our citizens. This week, Dnipro was attacked 2 times. First time it was attacked on 12th of February. I think it was near tonight. It was attacked by drones, by Shaheds. Dnipro was attacked and was hit our power plant. After this attack, some drones were hit our power plant. Some was shut down. I think we have some problems with our long-range air defense, and we against drones are using only short-range air defense, and that is why I think some drones have hit our power plant. After that attack, we have some problem. We had some problem with electricity, and also with heat system, because some part of our city is receive heat from this power plant. From this power plant, and also our one hospital received heat from this power plant, and 5 schools. After this attack, these 5 schools were closed because of temperature, and because of heating power plant. And now our children are studying online. And one hospital, patients from one hospital were evacuated, also because of Russian attack. And also Russian attack Dnipro against, it was on Thursday. I think it was by rockets, and I think they attacked our oil. Mm, I think they attack our oil storages, but I think it was unsuccessful because that oil storage isn't using, I think, and but also some factories were damaged by this attack, but which were situated near this oil storage. It's shortly report. If you are interested in some question, you can ask.
Yeah, thanks, Vasyl. I think this week was particularly Russia launched more strikes than usual. Would you agree or no?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Dnipro weren't hit so many. I think for many, maybe months, maybe last some massive attacks were in early January, first days of January, and after that it wasn't attacked so heavily. And also our region, Nikopol city, I want to tell this, it's situated southern part of Dnipro region, and it's maybe 15 kilometers from Enerhodar, where is situated our nuclear plant occupied. And Nikopol is usually hit from there, and not only by artillery and shells, but also they started to use drones, not Shaheds, but FPV and other drones to hit the city. It's cruel problem for us and for citizens of the city.
Right. So you're saying they're using the nuclear power plant as a place they launch weapons from so that Ukraine can't hit back, because if they do, they risk damaging the nuclear power plant, right?
Yeah. It's a very big problem. We can't use some artillery or rocket artillery. I think we can use only some very, maybe drones or maybe something like that.
Yes, I mean, obviously a war crime, and pretty horrible, even outside of just the purely legal concept of a war crime. I think just a uniquely horrible and evil thing to do. So, I mean, thank you very much, Vasyl. Did you have anything else you wanted to conclude with?
What concludes, they continue their terrorist attacks. They continue try to push Ukrainian citizens of Dnipro. I don't understand what's the goal of their attacks, because it's only kill our men and destroy our infrastructure, but it will not do anything what maybe they want, or they what they aim they have.
Yeah, thank you very much. So you heard it from a resident of Dnipro. The terror attacks are awful, but they're not working. They're not going to
Yeah,
deter
it's
Ukrainians.
also I want to say it's very loud when
Yeah.
shaheds or rocket is hit or destroyed, and also when in some way um, in some way it's very loudly, very and mirror or not mirrors and windows are you hear it, you hear these explosions very exactly and strictly.
Yeah, it's incredibly scary. I mean, imagine for pets, for kids, it's very disruptive to people's everyday life, and it's just plain terrorism.
Yeah,
It's terrible.
yeah. It's very pity to say, but older men and like me and other citizens of Dnipro, you are used to. It's very bad to say, but yes. But children, pets, it's incredible. It's incredible.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, Vasyl, for coming on and sharing with us. You're always welcome up anytime if you want to share any news with us. We'll be moving now to our next segment, which is Germany to Ukraine
But
and
but
Bionade. Oh, go ahead.
Joseph, sorry to interrupt you, but just before we move forward, I wanted to congratulate the team behind 20 Days Behind Mariupol, or actually Jonathan encouraged me to do so because they just when we went live, it was announced that they won the BAFTA awards, and that is great news because it maybe give some more attention to this very well-made documentary, and also with an enormous amount of impressions documenting a bunch of Russian terrible war crimes. Congrats to the team as well, and to every Ukrainian that uh, you know have this documentary must be some sort of uh, what can I say, national treasure in a way, even though it is what it is when it comes to very terrible impressions. And I found it incredibly emotional, that documentary, and I'm sure many of the people I've seen it feels the same.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know, Ireland. I wasn't aware of this. So yeah, it's great to hear. So for those who didn't tune in last week, our contributor Jonathan did an interview with Ben Goldhagen, who was the creator of this documentary, of course, of this crew. He is
No, just
sort
so
of.
that's a different documentary. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, you're right. That's To the Zero Line. Oh my God,
Yes.
20 Days in Mariupol is a different. That's the one that's Daria is the translator for the Belarusian. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So this is a different documentary. Gee whiz. Okay, so I mean that's great though that it got a BAFTA. So I
Yes.
mean it's good to see. So BAFTA, let's rewind. A BAFTA is a UK award. It's a pretty significant award. I'd say it's like in UK TV and film, and it's like a pretty big achievement in filmmaking to get a BAFTA. So it's good news to hear that like Ukraine is the subject.
Yep. And it recognizes also the work of these journalists who basically risked their lives inside a war zone for 20 days, and managed to get out before it was too late. But I know that their exit was also very difficult.
Yeah, I mean it's a great film. People should check it out if they haven't seen it. Yeah, sorry, I got my wires crossed there. I was just thinking like we did a documentary. I assumed because we were jumping in for some reason, I was like, oh, we just did that thing. But of course, the titles are different for those two
Yeah.
documentaries. So, yeah, 20 Days in Mariupol, also a very good documentary. Watch all documentaries on Ukraine you can, I think, because I don't know. I tend to watch a lot of footage of Ukraine, on Twitter, and you see a lot of like disjointed clips of things. But I think there's something to be said about someone willing to go there and sit down and film things and then edit everything and put it all together and tell some kind of story or try to get something cohesive out versus just an aggregation of a lot of little clips. So I think it's always good to, watch documentaries because that helps. And this, of course, was a very important one. So thank you, Erland, for that. Next, we will go to the segment with Bionade and Germinate to Ukraine. This is about German vehicles that have been going to Ukraine. So I will hand it over to you guys. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Shortly before we start with the segment, Erland, I have a short question. Why is Tauros trending for you under the category arts and culture? Can you check that? Can you check that out for a second? I was waiting to ask this question for 5 minutes now.
First of all, this is not my account. It's Tochnyi.
It's Tochnyi. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But we can see.
Oh no! Hopefully no nudes.
The Tochnyi account has a very
Okay.
Yeah, Adele. Okay.
God damn you, man.
That was Adele. There was no nudes. It was just Adele.
Okay. Well, it's better that I didn't scroll more down because German aid to Ukraine would definitely not be happy with the rest of the tweets down there.
Yeah, probably. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? But the segment. So before we start, or Bionade, do you want to do the introduction? Bionade?
Yes, sure. I would like to, absolutely. So, okay, today at Tochnyi, we will have a look behind the headlines. We will talk a bit about the so-called FFG scandal. At least the German Bild titled it a scandal. If it is a scandal, we will find out. But I would say, let's start at the beginning. German aid to Ukraine. Can you explain to us what class of vehicle were promised and for what kind of vehicles were actually delivered? What happened there?
Yeah. So in May 2023, the German government announced the largest aid package to Ukraine to date, even until now. The aid package was worth around 2.7 billion euros, so very, very big. And in this package, there were included 100 armored combat vehicles, or over 100 armored combat vehicles. At the beginning of June, so a couple of months later, 1 month later, yeah, perfect. It then became clear that the over 100 armored combat vehicles would include 66 Bet-UMG, which are basically FFG APCs here in Germany. And these are got more or less delivered shortly after the announcement.
All right. Initially, there was like public information about the FFGs that they will have like these licensed production of the Bet-UMG. What happens there? Was it a licensed production? How works this construct?
Yeah. So originally, a licensed production was to take place in Germany by FFG. And for those who don't know, FFG is a German company located in Flensburg, and it's basically Europe's largest supplier of armored vehicles to Ukraine at all. So they are involved in many, many hundreds of armored vehicles, which already have been delivered to Ukraine. Just to name a few, for example, they are involved in the Pionierpanzer DAX, which the German government delivers, in the mine clearing tanks Wiesent, the Leopard 1F5s, of course, and many, many more. And in more detail, these FFG APCs or Bet-UMGs should mean that all parts of them will be delivered to Germany, and the vehicle will only be assembled here. If I remember correctly, Rheinmetall is planning to do the same in the future with the Fuchs APC in Ukraine. So nothing unusual. It just means that the vehicles will be delivered much more quickly instead of just producing every part in or most of the parts in Germany. And according to the article, however, FFG returned the order to a subcontractor of TAG, which is the original manufacturer in the US, which means that the production will ultimately take place at TAG in Middle East in the United Arab Emirates. And even if this, of course, represents a deviation from the original plans, I personally ask myself what speaks against the production in Germany or assembly in Germany. I mean, there must be a reason for this decision, and but ultimately, I don't see a real problem with the assembly in a different country than Germany. To be honest, at least since we didn't see a reason for this in the article, so I wouldn't overestimate the importance of that as things stand.
All right. You mentioned the Fuchs, and what is about the FFG APC? How much does it cost, and which kind of vehicles are getting, for example, used in the Bundeswehr, and which alternatives are on the market?
Yeah. So according to the build report, a single vehicle at FFG costs 600,000 euros. The original manufacturer in the US charges around 215,000 euros. Of course, I can personally understand that a company, or as a company, you always want to make profit. I think that's purely logical that you want to make profit as a company. But I think a price almost 3 times as high is at least questionable. Let's say it that way. Especially when you consider that the FFG APC was chosen because the highly speculated alternative at the time, the Fuchs APC, which is, for example, in service with the German Bundeswehr, would be around 6 times as more expensive. At least it was reported that way back then. So at the time, the choice was between supplying 6 FFG APCs or a single Fuchs APC. And in terms of the price alone, for me, that was a purely logical decision by the German government. I wouldn't blame that, at least for this price thinking itself. But in addition to the Fuchs APC, there are a few other alternatives in the world. One that is very important to me is, for example, the Senator MRAP, which is manufactured in Canada. The manufacturer has now delivered over 1,000 of these vehicles to Ukraine in different configuration. And the feedback from Ukraine, which I heard and read and saw, and also the people I spoke to, everything is very positive. Of course, not everything is great, but it's comparably very, very positive. And unfortunately, there is no interest on the German side so far, at least not 2 or 3 weeks ago when I spoke to the manufacturer, or wrote with the manufacturer to be precise. And they actually said to me that there were no contact to the German government at all. So I really can't understand why they don't even think about supplying these vehicles. I mean, they have supplied a large amount of vehicles to Ukraine. The feedback is good. Spare parts should be available with this amount of supplied vehicles. And yeah, I can't understand that, to be honest.
Okay. You mentioned different vehicles, and they all have like their traits. And I heard there was like a core message about this scandal. How the build described it was there was something with the protection class, the Stanak. What kind of difference is there between the Fuchs or the FFG APC or the Senator? What is there the difference basically?
Yeah. So first, I personally wouldn't call it a scandal. I know you also not, but Bild called it that way, so we have to use a term. Just want to point that out. Very simple explanation what Stanak is. Stanak is a NATO standard which defines protection levels of certain vehicles. You have different protection levels for mine protection, for ballistic protection. So, for example, against kinetic energy from bullets. And the higher the level, the more protection the vehicle offers. It's a very, very basic explanation of Starnak. And Erlen, can you please throw? You already have that. Perfect. And so the base variant of the A1 of the Fuchs actually provides about the same protection as a FFG APC, which you can't see in the image, sadly. So I can understand why the German government said that they are choosing the FFG APCs based on the fact that the vehicle is 6 times as cheap and offers about the same protection. But if we now at the image and search for the second green Fuchs bubble more to the right, I know the designations are in German. There's a Zusatzpanzerung, which basically just means extra armor or extra protection. And this one actually offers not only more ballistic protection, but also a decent mine protection level, which is about the same as the Dingo 1, which is in service in Ukraine and works very well. The interesting question I'm asking myself now, and I think everyone or some people also ask it, and which is not explained in the Bild article, which I am very missing, is whether Rheinmetall offered the vehicles to Ukraine with or without additional armor. I think that makes a huge difference, not only to me, it should make a difference to everyone. Because not only in terms of armor, but also in terms of the price. If the vehicle offers good armor for the crew in return, then I can certainly understand a price, let's say 5 or 6 times as high as the FFG APC, which don't provide any mine protection, you know. And that's sadly unfortunately not clear from the article. And by the way, huge thanks to Jeff. For the guys who don't know him, Jeff is a great guy who also tracks all kind of aid from other countries, not in that detail I'm doing for Germany, but he has a great overview, also a great list, and he helped me a little bit with the research on the Fuchs. So please go check him out.
All right. Basically, these vehicles, the BAT-MG is not protected against mines, as far as I understand it. We were talking about combat vehicles, right? Which should be shipped. For which purpose were these vehicles planned, and in what capacity are they used now?
Yeah. So since the vehicles were offered as armored combat vehicles, I strongly assume that they wanted to provide Ukraine with armored vehicles, which they could go into combat with. And I can only imagine that the Ukrainians naturally wanted to use the vehicles in the exactly same way and planned accordingly. Although, to be honest, an anonymous Ukrainian source says in the report that no vehicles with mine protection were even offered from the German side. And the source in the article also says or states that the FFG APC was offered as an alternative to the Fuchs. And that is the reason why it was assumed that a certain amount of mine protection was included in the vehicles. So unfortunately, the wording is a bit vague, and one could argue that if no vehicles with mine protection were initially offered to the Ukrainian side, they knew that they don't get vehicles with mine protection, just to be honest and also make that clear. As far as I know, and what's also stated in the article, is that the vehicles are now used for VIP transports, for example, behind the front line. So not actually for what they were originally announced or intended for. And by the way, Erland, I have a video, or I sent you a video of a destroyed. Yeah, exactly. That is a destroyed BAT-MG, just to show you as an explanation. I cannot tell you if it's a German delivered one or one of the vehicles, one of the 100 vehicles delivered by an unknown Eastern European country. The video is from December 2023, so there might be a possibility that it's a German vehicle, but we don't know for sure, since it's basically licensed production, 1-to-1. But it shows that these vehicles were actually intended for the frontline use, and Ukraine used it that way. At least I assume. We don't see a lot of footage from the Batymgi, and if we see footage, it's mainly damaged or destroyed vehicles, even though not very much. So yeah, just wanted to point that out, that the Ukrainians are apparently really using or try to use them on the front line, which didn't work out that well. Yeah.
Yeah, for me it sounds like bad communications, right? Well, just someone made sadly sloppy jobs there, possibly did not offer Ukraine these mine protected vehicles or mine protected variants, and if I declare them as combat vehicles, I I basically think they are like mine protected. It's at least for me watching this war the last 2 years, it's it's clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would be your conclusion for this whole article and this whole endeavor which happened here?
So first, I absolutely agree with you. It's not about the vehicle itself. I mean, it's still a great vehicle. It just would be a great vehicle for different use cases. Like for the VIP transport, it's perfectly fine. But using this vehicle, just as you said, as an armored combat vehicle to actually go into combat, work on the front line, I think it's not very useful. But in conclusion, I can only say that I wouldn't classify all this as a huge scandal, but it raises a few questions in me, and I believe not only in me, but also in other people. And I personally want answers to these questions, because when I say it once again, when you offer or you announce armored combat vehicles, then I'm expecting armored combat vehicles and not half armored, I would say, or armored vehicles without mine protection. Because you have to imagine this is basically a SWAT vehicle given to the military to work on the front line in a war zone, in a heavily mined war zone. And that's why I don't understand. And also, this is not the only vehicle. I mean, under the same designation, we supplied Bandwagen, unarmored Bandwagen to Ukraine. So it could even be worse. Bandwagen also is a very great vehicle, and I think Erland would agree with me since he's a huge fan. It's not an armored combat vehicle. And for me, it is important that we learn from our mistakes we have made in the past and do not repeat them in the future. And this is also why I have addressed this topic not only on Twitter, but also here in Tochnyi. I think not everything in the article might be true. Maybe some things are excavated. Did I say that correctly? Excavated, like pushed up. But I think it still need to be addressed because there's some basic truth to it. And I mean, the missing mine protection, for example, is confirmed by the German government. It's not something that Bill just wrote, it's confirmed. And I think that's a serious issue, at least in my eyes, when you announce armored combat vehicles. I can't say that enough. Yeah, that's my conclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree there. So yeah, this was our little dive behind the headlines about the more or less scandal. For me personally, it's like I said, sloppy work. If we want to support our partners in Ukraine, then we should do it the right way, and these kind of errors shouldn't happen. All right, let's continue. Back to you, Joseph.
Well, I believe, Maurice, do you have a presentation today, or this was like the presentation this week?
No, I actually have the basic news report still.
Cool. So I think we'll do that, and then I think we have like a couple questions from the chat. So chat, if you guys have any questions for us this week, I think this is kind of our last segment. Jonathan will do like a picture of the week at the end, but if you guys have any questions for us as like a panel, more or less, feel free to ask. So Maurice, go ahead.
Yeah. Just for info, are there any questions for me at the moment or not? Anybody saw something?
I don't think I saw any that were specific to the vehicle stuff, but we'll maybe get to some general like artillery stuff later.
Yep, sure. Yeah, starting. So now that we had some negative news, I try to lift the mood a bit and with some positive news, but I keep it a bit shorter since we already had a segment on German aid to Ukraine, basically. Sorry, on the wrong slide. There's the right one. Rheinmetall began the construction of a new 155mm ammunition, artillery ammunition factory in Germany on Monday, which will produce a total of 200,000 shells per year at full capacity. A new RDX explosive production facility will also be created, and even rocket engines will be produced in Unterlüß in Germany. In total, we are talking about 50,000 155 shells in the first year after construction period of about 12 to 15 months. 100,000 155 shells in the second year, and full capacity with 200,000 shells in the third year. On Thursday, the German government announced a 100 million euro aid package for Ukraine, focusing on Ukraine's short-term needs. It includes an unknown number and type of MRAPs, bombs for arming small drones, medical supplies, spare part packages for various weapon systems already in service in Ukraine, and 77 MAN Cat 1 A1 trucks with load handling systems, as you can see in the picture. All 8 announced should be delivered shortly or is already in Ukraine. Then a lot of stuff happened on Friday. First, the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and the Ukrainian president signed the agreement on long-term security commitments, which makes Germany the second country in the world which signed such an agreement with Ukraine after the UK. France, as you heard from Joseph before, followed very shortly after that as the third country. By the way, I didn't. I went through the whole document and uploaded on Twitter a summary, basically, of everything. If you want me to explain it here on Tochnyi, just write in the chat, and then I will get the tweet and just read a bit from it. Just moments later, the German government updated the list on military aid deliveries to Ukraine and made public that they have delivered the following to Ukraine in the past 2 weeks. 18 FFG APCs, which we just talked about. These were, by the way, the latest deliveries. So now the delivery is closed with 66 in total delivered. Around 4,155 shells, 3 recent 1MC mine clearing tanks, which you can see on the picture. 1 Pioneer Panzer 2A1 DAX AV, 9 9PLOS, 10 Vector UAVs, 11 Promoko 1 UAVs, 7 Songbird UAVs, 4 border protection vehicles, 500 Falke light systems. So it's basically an LED light system specially designed for combat medics, and undisclosed IT equipment. And the big news on Friday, besides the security agreement, Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz announced a new military aid package for Ukraine worth 1.13 billion euros, which will include 18 Panzerhaubitze 2000, 18 remote-controlled Haubitsas 155, 2 Skynex air defense systems, 120,000 shells 122 mm artillery ammunition, and 100 IRIS-T missiles for the SLS launchers. The ammunition will get delivered this year, with the Skynex systems following in 2025, and the artillery systems will get delivered starting in 2025 until 2027. On Saturday, the German defense company Dynamit Nobel Defense, the manufacturer of the Panzerfaust 3 or the RGW-90 Matador, signed a memorandum of understanding with the Ukrainian UDI, the Ukrainian defense industry, basically. Sadly, I don't have any information which was agreed on, which is planned right now, but I will provide it, of course, later in Tochnyi if I get something. And yeah, but it's very good news. Maybe we see a domestic production of the Panzerfaust, for example, in Ukraine. And as the last item, on the same day, Rheinmetall signed also a memorandum of understanding with the Ukrainian UDI, the Ukrainian defense industry, and stated that they plan to open a new 155mm factory in Ukraine. The plan is to produce a six-figure number of 155 shells per year, including the propellant chargers in Ukraine. We have no detailed infos on that yet, besides the number of produced jets, at least the planned number. But here's the same. I will tell you everything which I know. Sorry, when I know something here in the podcast. Yeah, and that's my weekly summary.
Thank you, Germany to Ukraine. So yeah, we have I think just maybe a few questions from the chat. So I think someone asked about this Czech 800,000 shell thing. Kellen Dunn asked, and I was a bit confused by this too. I was hoping Germany to Ukraine, you knew what was going on with that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
What do you want to know, or what does Kellen want to know?
Well, like what's going on with it? Like, did it work out? Like, where did the shells come from? Did it work out? Is Ukraine going to get 800,000 shells? Because that would be pretty significant, right?
Yeah, it would be very, very significant, especially in the current situation, right? When I remember right, the Russians are firing right now 10,000 shells per day. The Ukrainians at maximum about 2,000. So yeah, they would come handy. With the sex cells, I really don't know where they get from. There are a lot of countries you can hear about, from South Korea over Bulgaria to other Eastern European countries to South Africa. You hear a lot of countries. I literally heard 10, 15 different countries. So I wouldn't say this is likely or this is likely. I don't think we would know, or we will know for sure unless someone goes public. So I wouldn't speculate on that one. Apparently, at least it makes sense in my eyes, Germany already financed partly of them. I mean, on Friday, we announced 100,000 122 shells. And just one day later, the Czech president goes live on the Munich Security Conference and states that they have found 300,000 122 shells. So basically the same Germany just announced a day earlier. And also 500,000 155 shells. So I think that's the same shells. Basically means that there are now 680,000 shells over. When I recall correctly, he said that when the funding is done, or when the shells got financed, they could be delivered within a couple of weeks, which is very, very good news. But it means that we have to act fast, very fast, to make the best out of it. The big problem is that we usually not very known, or the US usually not very known to make fast acting, and so I think it comes down to bilateral procurements. The president also said that they are already working, or they're trying to finding financing in the US, in Germany. He mentioned Sweden and other countries. I think Germany we just did. The US, I think, is ruled out. I think the Americans here can also agree on that this won't happen in the near future. And for every other country, I can't speak publicly, of course. I mean, I can't speak publicly for my country, but I know what we're doing, at least to some extent. I just hope that some countries are financing this. France would be a good opportunity. The big problem is, I think it then comes down to where the shells are coming from, since we had these media reports, unconfirmed media reports, of course, about France and I believe it was Greece and Cyprus blocking EU procurements of artillery shells outside the EU. So when these sources located by the sex, sorry, my German mind doesn't allow me to speak that name correctly, and they don't allow the procurement outside. So when these domestic sources are not inside the EU, I don't think they could be procured with EU funding. So it comes down to bilateral aid, and this means heavy investments for other countries. I mean, not for Germany. We're announcing aid, hundreds of millions of euros on a more or less regular basis. But for the most smaller countries, I would say this is a huge commitment. I think when it comes down, for example, to Lithuania or Latvia, the stuff we announce in one package is basically what they have spent in 2 years in Ukraine. That's just what we announce in one package. So it's very hard for them to procure these shells in a good amount, I would say. I don't know how they want to do it, but yeah, I think it comes down to bilateral aid, and we just have to act fast. And they can end up in Ukraine, but they need funding first. Sorry, that was a long answer.
No, yeah, I think I got it. So the takeaway is the shells are real. Well, as far as we know, at least publicly. Don't ask where they came from. Not important. Don't ask so many questions. But the funding mechanism is the key. And I'm guessing that's probably like 1 or 2 billion, 800,000 shells. Do you any thoughts ballpark on that?
How much they cost in total?
Yeah, well, you said like there's a need for funding. How much are we talking? I assume a couple billion for 800,000 shells.
Yeah, I mean, when I just thinking about the 155 shells, I really have no clue how much the 1 to 2 shells are worth. I mean, we could do the basic math and just break down the German package, and then what we are left over is what the shells cost. But I think at least I would say 2 billion for everything, based on the fact that Germany bought very, very recently, in the middle of November 23, so very recent numbers, 68,000 155 shells for 200 and, oh Jesus, someone correct me, 270, 280 million euros or so. So when you add that up, I would say you come to, let's say, 2 billion euros at least. Yeah, I think that would be needed, and that's a lot of money. That's big ton money, even when you're taking into account that no aid or no funding is coming from the US right now. So there are a lot of small countries in the EU that have to finance that bilateral, and that's hard for them, I would say.
Yeah, so I think we hope that funding mechanisms materialize quickly to get these shells, because as you mentioned, there might be like a bit of a hot it might be a hot market, so and we should do it quickly, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, as soon as possible, right? I mean, Ukraine needs shells now, and not in 3 months, not in a year, or not in 2 years. I mean, they still need them, but they need them now. And
If these 800,000 shells are real, I mean, it really solves a major problem, which is that we need time to get all these assembly lines going and built, these new lines built. I guess like real quick, just maybe like artillery roundup, right? I mean, we've got the Namo plant is finally spinning up for real. Erland, do you know approximately how many shells are going there?
No, and no one will know.
Yeah,
all
but
secret.
it's a lot. It's going to be a lot.
Yeah, I mean, so considering that Namo was one of the 3 largest producers, and I think actually they had the largest market share in Europe on artillery shells before the full-scale invasion. When all the three plants are doubling, and some say the Finns are tripling, etc. The output within the end of the year, that is definitely going to be significant. And then you have BA Systems that is scaling up massively as well, and Rheinmetall, buying
BAE
up
in the UK, right?
BA in the UK, yeah. And then also, and there, of course, we have our resident.
And we don't have numbers for them either, right?
No, they're also secret, but
Yeah,
it's big. It's very big. But yeah,
France
also of
mentioned,
course,
I mentioned earlier, 30,000 shells a month is their.
yeah, and it's super frustrating that we get all these positive announcements in the beginning of this year, but the reality of that is that this doesn't kick in right now, right? And even the production that has been going on in all the different plants for a long time, this since the start of the full-scale invasion, a lot of that ammunition is stored around in Europe and also even in other countries because they ordered munitions immediately when the war started. So there's been news about. I think someone mentioned at the security conference that 40% or more of all the produced munitions in Europe is being just stocked in third countries. So yeah, it's very frustrating.
Yeah. And then Germany to Ukraine, we have, of course, Rheinmetall. They opened that plant in Spain, right? They're talking about putting one in Ukraine. But for now, do we know roughly how many shells a month they're looking at, or do they have a target or anything?
Well, first they acquired the Expire systems in Spain. They didn't open something new in Spain. They, when I remember correctly, like everything from Rheinmetall, they built now a new one in Unterlüß. They expanded the current capacities in, at least in Germany. They built a new 1.5 plant in not only in Unterlüß but also in Hungary. Now the plan to also build a new factory 155 millimeter ammunition in Ukraine, but of course it's just planned. So there's a lot of going on. When I remember correctly, there were about 450,000 shells a year. And the plan was, well, first the plan was to produce 700,000 in 2024, but recent announcements indicate otherwise. Although they said at the beginning that they're planning to produce 700,000 during the full year, they're now saying that they try to reach 700,000 at the end of 2024. The capacity, not the production, but the capacity. So I would say right now 450 is guaranteed.
Right, so you're saying, because like if they finish getting the capacity up to that by 2024, what it means is like for half the year they weren't up to that capacity.
Yes.
Yeah, but but it seems like they can sort of this is a very rough thing, but like I guess the point, all this to say, they need time to really scale these things up. And this 800,000 shells really represents a big windfall if it's legit. And it sounds like it is. So we hope they go after it. Maybe some of the funds for this artillery million shells to Ukraine thing could go to that. It seems like a lot of that's already been earmarked, though.
I personally really don't know. Like when it comes down to Rheinmetall, I mean, they make great progress. But I think we could do more. It just needs more funding. I mean, I can totally understand that the company don't want to invest. I mean, alone the plant in Unterlüß now, the 3 new plants with the rocket motors, with the 155 ammunition, and with the RDX explosives. Alone, this is an investment of 300 million euros. Then we had the procurement of Expal systems in Spain with 1.2 billion euros. Then the investment in Hungary with all the stuff which is built now. So I would say Rheinmetall spent at least, let's say, 1.52 billion in all the explosives and 155 capacity and stuff like this since 2022. And I can really understand why they're saying, hey, we might need extra funding from the government, or at least I could understand when they're saying this, because they can do more. They always can do more. I mean, everyone can, right? It's not against Rheinmetall itself. Yeah, I think they just need more funding from the government. When the government would say, okay, we're giving you, let's say, 500 million euros or 1 billion euros, I think Rheinmetall would know how to expand this or expand this, just to make the sheds quicker, or build a new plant to produce more, or solve a supply chain problem. Yeah, that's just my take.
Yeah, so we probably missed at least one like major manufacturer. I know Danielle is probably chomping at the bit to say something about all this. So I'll just Danielle. We got other questions, but I'll let you if you had anything you wanted to add about. Just I was trying to give people like a general picture of like the artillery situation, and also like because this 800,000 shell thing has been discussed this week, just kind of like what that would mean. But go ahead, Danielle. Welcome, by the way.
Oh, thank you. My feeling is sadness, because I think I started this nearly a year ago, saying that we should build new factory, and I just started now. This could be, everything could be anticipated, and a lot of problem already resolved if different companies had decided to do this before. And maybe it's also the government that didn't push too much, and now because they see that the threat and the risk ahead, they decided to go and do this investment, which are substantial. But yes, I think across the entire spectrum of most of the biggest artillery shell, the artillery shell production is going up in all companies. BAE, Nammo, as Erlen said, invested. BAE is investing as well. Not in new facility, to my knowledge, but so looks like that
U.S. is meeting
is
their
right.
targets, as far as I know. I said U.S. is meeting their new production targets, as far as I know. They've increased all their production targets.
Yeah, I was honestly considering mainly Europe, because my belief is that Europe has to boost its capacity and become kind of independent, and try to don't rely too much on US, because even if the unforeseen happen, which US is busy somewhere else, we needed to be able to provide ourselves. So these investments are really an insurance for the future, in my opinion. So that's good. Anyway, it's good that US is able to push so quickly the production up.
Yeah, definitely, and just saying, as you said, like kind of everyone seems to be on target to increase production, but it's kind of inexplicable why it took this long. I mean, I'm sure there was sort of reasons, but let's be real here. If like our children were being bombed, like we wouldn't be dilly dallying like this. It wouldn't have taken a year to get our act together. So hopefully, there will be a new sense of urgency as the French thing, or whatever the language they had. Hopefully that's taken seriously.
I just read the comment from Jeff, and yes, he's right. One of the few companies, because Rheinmetall is very good because it owns a lot of different sites across Europe, Spain, Italy. So it's good, because if Rheinmetall push forward these these factories may start to do better. I can't speak for Italy, but Spain looks like is revamping. Is a very old site, so they need, of course, to redo some work. But for next year, I have lost my words. Their target is very minimal. It would be low even for the previous target of 1 year ago. But at the moment, probably they don't have capacity to invest or to commit resources. I'm speechless about that. I totally understand the comment from Jeff at the moment about next year.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. And I know I remember last week you mentioned you had a topic you wanted to discuss, so we'll open the floor to you as soon as we get through all the questions. But first, we have this question from Jenny X May, which is, why hasn't the F-16 been delivered yet? So, as far as I know, in America at least, crews are being trained. There was mention that they're doing great. They're doing a great job with their training, and like they're flying on their own now, and they're still training them to do like complex missions. Like that's the stage they're at. They know how to fly the aircraft great, but you know it's there's a difference between that and like operating in a wing together to accomplish a mission to destroy Russian air defense. It's a very, very dangerous environment. Obviously, they need to get really optimal, top tier training to get that done. Real issue that any new training will need to come from some kind of new funding. So up until now, like tuition is determined by that, and you know there needs to be more tuition money put in the pot for to train more pilots in the U.S. I'm not sure how far along European efforts are to train pilots, but I think that's still the limitation is the pilot training. So does anyone on the European side want to talk about the European efforts, which I think are much more expansive than the US ones?
So I just wanted to add, so we don't really know anything about when the European training program is due to be complete, but we have a source for the US one. So maybe that puts it a little bit into perspective. The European program did start earlier, but it is very much secretive. We don't know exactly how many pilots are being trained, and we don't know anything about when they're due to be transferring these aircraft to Ukraine, except that it has been mentioned by, for instance, the Norwegian government and I think the Dutch government that they want to transfer these first batch of airplanes sometime this spring, and I think it's or think early 2024 was how it was told. So we don't have many months left really for that statement to be fulfilled. But anyways, to explain a little bit for the question, why hasn't the F-16 been delivered? Well, it takes a lot of time to train crew on the ground and pilots, and that's just how it is. You can't just put them in a plane and say like, yeah, here we go to Ukraine with this new piece of tech. You need extensive amount of training for not just the pilot, but a lot of people around the whole logistical system and the ground crew, etc.
Yeah, like and I mean, on top of just the F-16 being a super complicated aircraft, I mean, not to say the Ukrainians can't understand complicated things. Obviously, they master very complex systems, but we're talking about an aerial environment. I don't know the lingo here. I wish Latin was here to really lay this down properly, but this is a really dangerous environment to operate. I don't think there's really any parallel in modern air history of what both the Russians and the Ukrainians have to deal with in terms of like you look at Russian aircraft losses, they are staggering. No modern air force, I think, would contemplate losses like that. Maybe the Chinese, right? But I mean, aside from no like Western air force would ever contemplate those losses. And you know, the Ukrainians have certainly lost aircraft in this, and it's a difficult environment for Ukraine because Russia has so many ground-based anti-air systems and so many radars, and you know they have to be really clever with how they use their aircraft. And so far, they've been able to punch way above their weight. No one thought the Ukrainian Air Force could survive, you know, a few months, let alone a year. Let alone 2 years, and they're still going strong. And they look to be getting stronger soon if the F-16s arrive. But you know, like it just should be stressed. Like we can't put the F-16s in there willy nilly. We've got to make sure that they are set up for success because it's a really non-permissive aerial environment, I think is what John Ridge might say. I try to talk like John Ridge when I'm talking security lingo.
Yeah, I just pulled up some, the 2 latest days of reports from the Ukrainian Air Force, and as you can see, they shot down 4, or claim to have shot down 4 aircraft, 1 Su-35 and 3 Su-34s, and this is in a situation where Russia actually has some sort of upper hand on the aerial combat picture, but they still struggle against Ukrainian air defenses, and Ukraine is going to have similar, or if not even a worse picture when they put the F-16s, if they push the F-16s up towards the front line, which I don't think they will anytime soon. But I mean, the Russians also have longer range air-to-air missiles than the Ukrainians has now. So hopefully they will get some nice radars on some of the aircrafts that they get. But we don't really know anything about that.
Yeah, and I certainly want them to get a lot of F-16s, but I'm guessing they're not going to get a ton just based on the way that this always goes for Ukraine. Like they're not going to get a ton to start with, right? So we want to make. I assume one of the reasons it's taking so long is they want to make absolutely certain these guys are ready to be totally survivable in this absolutely insane air combat environment where it's Russia's losing 3 aircraft in a day, and just accepting that is what they have to do, right?
Yep. Hopefully, also Orban will finally, make actions to his promise of letting Sweden into NATO. I think the Swedes are eager to not just join NATO, but also to be able to procure more aid to Ukraine. I think a lot of Swedish aid is going to be dependent on their NATO membership being officialized, and hopefully we'll also see the Gripens. I know some people don't necessarily think that's a good idea, but if they get Gripen East, which would have been a dream, then I think that would could make a big difference for Ukraine. It's going to be expensive for Sweden, and they probably will need help from Europeans to pay for the program. But yeah, I think it would be worth it for Sweden as well, or else no one else is going to, acquire the Gripens. So we'll see.
Yeah, I know it's been a few weeks ago. The Hungarian parliament was supposed to discuss allowing Sweden into NATO. They basically assured all of their international partners that they would allow this to happen, and then they didn't. Basically, the ruling party didn't show up to the discussions, which means there wasn't really a discussion to have. Basically all the ambassadors in Europe and the United States were just furious because this is again ostensibly an ally that they told us like this is the way it was going to go, and then they just completely backstabbed. I know they were very furious, and since then there's been like a lot of back and forth going on, and very recently something happened where they sort of delayed again this decision to allow Swedish accession into NATO. So is that essentially where we're at, Erlen? Did I?
Yeah, they just didn't meet up yeah, the ruling party didn't meet to parliamentary session.
Yeah, I think again, right?
Yeah, so it's kind of it's embarrassing for Hungary as well, in my opinion. But
yeah, I think pretty soon. I mean, based on we all saw last time, like eventually Hungary does cave. Like you can back them into a corner and say, "Hey, this is how it's going to go." Like every country in Europe wants this except you, so go away. And they do give up. So I think they're definitely pushing their luck here with NATO membership for an ally. Like there's basically no good case for them why not to allow it, right? So it just comes off purely as like a jerk move. I don't know quite how to say it in diplomatic terms, but like there's not a good argument here on their behalf. So they just they basically look like they're not even worth having as an ally at this point. So I think they're really pushing their luck with this, and I think there's a limit to it. I just don't know what that limit is, right? Would you agree or disagree?
I can't say I'm an expert on Hungarian politics at all, but it seems like there is a way for Europe and Western allies to push Orban into a corner. It seems like he caves. It seems like he doesn't really, sabotage everything to the strongest way he could. He could have been even worse pain in the ass, to be honest.
Yeah, and then someone asked, like, is there anything going on in the U.S. right now? Is like how I'm going to phrase it. As mentioned, the U.S. is in a recess, as mentioned in the question.
They went on holiday.
Yeah,
right?
They're basically on holiday. Yeah, they're on holiday, which means they're going back to their state and campaigning or whatever. But yeah, they are not deliberating at the moment. There's talk, I think, of maybe some kind of bill in the House being cooked up, but I wouldn't put a lot of faith in it. The House is really dysfunctional. I think our best shot was to have them just look at what the Senate did and give it a thumbs up. But we might see something happen there. Like, there's still definitely, like, the thing is, I think they have the votes for like a package for Ukraine and for all this stuff. Like, if you put all this stuff together, I think they have the votes for it. But right now there's sort of procedural matters whereby certain people are allowed to, in this case, the speaker, like, restrict the vote from happening. So I don't know. I'm personally, I guess, optimistic that eventually, like, something will give here. There's like too many people in both the Republican Party and the Democrat Party in favor of it. But for now, of course, it's like, in the short term, we're not optimistic. I wish John or Colby was here to talk about what a discharge petition is and how it works. But that's also a possibility. Basically, it's a way to I don't understand the specific mechanic, but it's a way to basically force through this one specific line item. Yeah, I don't know, someone in the chat might be able to explain it better. But yeah, that's maybe another possibility. But for now, there's a recess, 2 weeks, more waiting while Avdiivka suffers, and the people there suffer a brutal Russian occupation where people are going to be murdered, like that priest I talked about. They're going to be put into possibly, a million people forcibly deported to Russia so far. So it's maddening as an American to watch. Just say, okay, well, another 2 weeks, but that seems to be the situation. But I guess I'm optimistic generally that eventually something's going to give here. Any other questions you see in chat, Erlen?
No, well, not really that we can answer with any precision or accuracy, but I have some good news when it comes to Tochnyi, because we are so lucky that we will be able to either tomorrow or on Tuesday we'll interview some of the people, or one of the people behind the Wild Hornet drones, the producers of drones for Ukrainian military.
Hey, we're doing a Tochnyi Talks on Monday or Tuesday, you said?
Yes, and we're going to talk about, of course, the Wild Hornets and how they are set up, and how the funding is working, how the development and production is working, and also a little bit about drones in general. And so it's interesting, also because of the recent announcements from Jens Stoltenberg that several of the NATO countries are going to provide about 1 million drones for Ukraine. And as far as I understand, that it's not just FPV drones, it's going to be a mix of surveillance drones and long-range one-way strike munitions, etc. But I expect or suspect that quite a large amount of those drones are going to be FPV drones just because of the number itself. I know there were some comments today from Alexander Commission that said these drones should be ordered from factories within Ukraine. I'm sure some of them might be ordered or paid for by EU countries so that or NATO countries, so they will be produced in Ukraine. But EU is already also funding the Ukrainian government's programs on drone production. So yeah, and I know that the Ukrainians also have a target of more than 1 million FPV drones. So yeah, Daniele, what do you think is the curve of use of FPV drones going to have a exponential growth finally?
Oh well, so far is going quite quite quadratically, let's say. So it's growing very very quickly. And I posted today or yesterday probably the latest numbers regarding the usage of the FPV drone on different targets. And I did an experiment. I posted like an animation. I don't know if you, Erland, you are able to pick that post. Otherwise, I can do for you. But yeah, this one. If you want, I was asked to post also the static. Yeah, this is the animation for the infantry, and is quite. I know that it's not very easy to visualize, but just to see month by month how big the jump it is. I mean, this other one is about vehicles, and is staggering. I mean, there is a sheer difference between Russian and Ukrainian, but also the amount and the consistency of usage is incredible. And yeah, this is the very important data, is about position. I'm working at the moment on another small article on this specific topic, and if you want to open it, to open the image to have a larger view, I mean, you can see how Ukrainians have completely changed their approach to this particular topic, and you can see that there is a stark increase into the number of attacks on position. We know by sure that sometime we had some attack on infantry which were classified as on infantry in trenches. So there are some infantry attack that in reality are trenches attack, but comes to the problem that how you change the classification and how you understand what was the real target. But these are effectively targeting the structure, not the people within. And there is also another post under these that show all the graphs. And if you just go back, and I just posted today, if you go down, there was someone asking me about, yeah, there was a question about the essentially the fact that why I posted the animation, and then to these guys I posted essentially the, oh yes, this one, yeah. So I decided to post the usual one. So this is the quadratic curves that I'm describing to you. Of course, has been fitted only up to January, because the complete data are only at January. But as we can see, that there is still a difference in between Russian strikes and Ukrainian strikes, and at the moment Ukrainian is ahead more or less of roughly 200 strikes, and is consistent. Now I'm updating this every week, and it's always like that. So it's possibly that this difference still be there. But as I say, the very interesting things is how Ukraine has been capable of adapting and understanding the usage. of the drone, for example, on position. And I think this is also related to the fact that they have much less ammunition in terms of artillery. So they, in order to save artillery, it's much more efficient to use FPV drone, which may not have the same sheer destruction power, but they are very accurate. And yep, and I think there is also another slide with the entire figure, just to have a sum of all the strike that we classified. I think is around yeah, maybe I didn't post. No, I didn't post, but it's more than 5,000, the Ukrainian one, and there is a difference of 1,000 between the two.
But also, we're now in the middle of the month, right? And normally,
Yes.
when you arrive to the next month, what we see is also that these numbers here they tend to increase while the backlog is being done as well, and
Mhm.
so that would mean that this, even if we're halfway through the month now, this might not be actually the halfway number, because normally there's a backlog of drone
Yep.
attacks that weren't registered. So yeah, just to keep in mind that this is just an update that isn't necessarily with all the drones up to this date.
No. And
Yep.
sometime you may see my graphs change a little bit, like one single digit or even less, because with Andrew we review data and sometimes we add, or more often we remove some strikes. So it can happen that these data also in the backlog they change, but honestly not much. Maybe they change in the months before, because you may see something. But yes, we are this is a short month, so probably we are not going to see exactly the double, but they are increasing quite abruptly, honestly. If you consider that we are at the half of the month and we have essentially the same data of end of December, this explain you that this data is very, very well in line with also the capability of both sides to build the drone, but also deliver to the front line. We can clearly see that there are much more FPV than in December, and probably a bit more than in January.
Yeah, and yeah, I just posted or pulled it up on the screen here that Jeff's comment. The UK announced that they are spending 200 million pounds to finance FPV production inside of the EU and provide thousands of them to Ukraine. And I know that Ukraine, of course, would like all of the productions to be happening in Ukraine, but can't really, push too much. I think on these things when the UK is deciding to put 200 million pounds into it. I think we shouldn't complain. But what I think is very interesting uh, and very happy to see is that there's a lot of component production taking place inside Ukraine now, and also that's one of the reasons why I'm super happy to be saying that we're gonna interview these guys, because they are
Yeah.
doing something that is absolutely fantastic. They're producing, the control boards of the drones in Ukraine with, their own PCBs, and that's one out of the three most important components, I would say, on an FPV drone.
Yep. And also the the parts, the component are not Chinese. So because they are
Yep.
not assembling Chinese component in Ukraine, they are assembling European and Taiwanese, Japanese component. They may be a bit expensive, but much more reliable. And as always, is the logistic, is the fact that these sources will be not cut by any chance. So it's very important. It's very important, and also these type of machine are very well scalable, because this is mass production of PCB, and who have done these or do this on a professional level knows that if you have money, you can scale up this very quickly.
Also, they're producing exactly for their requirements, which is probably going to make to a lot more efficient use of resources, because you're not they're not producing an FPV drone for it to be a toy. They're producing it to be a weapon, and there might be some
Yes.
things they don't need, and then there's some other things they might need more high quality components for, etc. So this is really, really good to see, and can't wait for the interview to take place. We just need to make some final agreements about the time, but you will see a announcement shortly, within tomorrow at least, on when the interview will take place.
Wait, so
Yeah,
are you
and
guys
just
saying
to
you can make drones without child labor and human trafficking?
Oh yeah, you
oh
can.
yeah,
Really?
you enslave robots.
I don't, because like me and John were talking about how Russia makes drones last week, and they're using, basically child labor and human trafficking.
Yeah, and also, well, I don't want to re-enter in that topic, but also the quality that is going to be as output is not even comparable with a machine or professional people trained. But just to stress a point, the fact that you are able to build your own PCB is important also for development, because if you have been in the development of a board of a system, the possibility to have hands-on the production, these allow you to have much more flexibility when you want to improve something, because you have the component, you can change what type of component you want to put on the PCB depending on a different requirement or a change in your requirements, and this doesn't need to be approved by another third party. So you just buy the component in mass that you need and you build.
Yep. So I think that's it for the drone segment of the week. But I think we'll probably post in the morning tomorrow the time of our interview.
Great. Unless we have any other questions, Erland, I think we're going to turn it over to Jonathan for picture of the week. Any final questions from chat?
There was one I saw, but I think it was a John question. Yeah, it's a John question.
Guess we'll have to wait until next time John's here. Yeah. Ask missile questions when John's here.
Yeah, Kellen, you have to wait until John's here. I'm so sorry.
But I know John has said like Germany should make Patriot missiles, so I have to imagine that it's not, the situation's not like completely rosy, but I don't know how the specifics there. Okay, so thank you everyone in chat for your questions. It was a lively discussion we had on our panel here. So we'll now turn it over to Jonathan for picture of the week, and then I guess I'll wrap things up. Jonathan, over to you.
Thank you, Joseph, and all of the team here who have produced another data-packed Tochnyi broadcast. I'd like to announce that next Sunday's episode of Tochnyi will include video and audio of the voices and the stories of people who will be attending rallies following the 2-year anniversary of the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine. If you would like Tochnyi to play any footage or audio from a rally you attend next Saturday, please get in touch with Tochnyi. We would like to feature it. We would like to consider footage from people's rallies for use in the intro video of the Tochnyi broadcast as well. So if you want to see your footage considered for the Tochnyi broadcast, please send it to us. So this week on Ukraine's Greatest Generation, we're going to feature Ukrainian poet and soldier in the ZSU, Maxim Krivitsov. Before I speak about him, Vasyl, if you're still there, had you heard of Maxim before he died? And if so, how popular was he in Dnipro? But just give Vasyl a moment. All right. Chime in anytime if you can hear us, Vasyl. So Maxim Alexandrovich Krivitsov was born in Rivne on January the 22nd, 1990. His father worked as a salesman, his mother a school librarian. He attended secondary schools numbers 23 and 28 in Rivne, later earning a degree in production of non-woven textile materials from the Technical School of Technology and Design in Rivne. In case anyone thinks that's a fairly unusual sounding qualification for your part of the world, I looked it up and it looks like a bloody tough skill to acquire. Many thanks, by the way, to Pen Ukraine and the other Ukrainian media outlets, which continue to be, for me at least, the best sources of information on Ukrainians. In 2014, Krivitsov completed his studies at the Kyiv National University of Technologies and Design. He gained work experience at the Rivne factory of non-woven materials, serving in various roles such as sales assistant, atelier master, and an SMM manager for a local project. Maxim was an active participant in the Revolution of Dignity. He volunteered at the front lines from 2014 and became a member and subsequently a veteran of the ATO operation there to liberate occupied eastern Ukraine. He engaged in combat operations with the 5th Battalion of the Right Sector between 2014 and 15, and later served as a senior machine gunner in the Rapid Response Brigade of the National Guard of Ukraine between 2016 and 2019. Following demobilization, Maxim worked as a content manager at the Yarmyz Center for Rehabilitation of ZSU veterans and as a copyright writer for the Org Veteran Hub. This guy is one of the many, I think we can definitely say, one of the many people who forged an independent, sovereign, modern Ukraine after 2014. He was extremely committed to the principles and the values of a modern Ukraine. So upon the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Maxim re-enlisted in the AFU. Tragically, on the 7th of January 2024, Maxim died serving Ukraine and the cause of European and greater world security. His funeral service took place on January the 11th at St. Michael's Golden Domed Cathedral, followed by a gathering on the Maidan in Kyiv. St. Michael's, it features a lot of photographs of Kyiv and its skyline. In case you're wondering, it's that Golden Domed Cathedral. Maxim was laid to rest on January the 12th in his hometown on the Alley of Heroes at the Nove Cemetery. He was posthumously awarded the Order of Merit, 3rd class, by President Zelensky. It's his poetry which Maxim is perhaps best known for. He was passionate about poetry since his teenage years, and he had his works featured in collections such as Love and War from the Book of Love 2.0 and Where I Am at Home, 112 poems about love and war, Lullaby of the 21st Century, Volume 1, but also the poems that he wrote inspired a lot of contemporary songs. So bands such as Yukash published songs including Dominant Height and Yellow Scotch based on his poetry. Alongside his literary pursuits, Maxim had an affinity for photography. The picture you can see before you here is of Maxim with a jigsaw in front of him. This is Tochnyi's picture of this week. Perhaps the jigsaw to you represents hope, as I read the National Autism Society states, or maybe solutions. Puzzles are obviously difficult to solve given the number of pieces, the intricacy of the puzzle, but they can be solved. Those pieces can be put back together. So we're going to play a video of Maxim reading his poem. I figured his voice is much better than my own.
Jonathan.
Yeah.
I think Vasyl is here, so you can ask your question again.
Fantastic. Welcome back, Vasyl. Had you heard of Maxim before he passed, and what did you know of him in Dnipro? Let's give him a quick mic check. Vasyl, maybe are you muted, Vasyl? Just check that. I imagine Vasyl right now is going through a similar issue I had earlier when I had to plug in my headphones. Shall we roll? Let's give him a minute. He's back. Vasyl, mic check. Yeah, you look fine this end, Vasyl. Could you just check the buttons at the bottom of your screen there? And whenever you want, just tap your mic or say whatever you want. It's no problem. Take your time. Okay, all right. Vasyl's going to rejoin us. Shall we roll the tape and hear Maxim? This is the name of this poem. Just before we hear it, it's called "Where Are My Dreams." So this is Maxim Krivitsov reading "Where Are My Dreams."
Я ходив по посадках та полях із соняхами. Я ховався за ними, був вдячним кожному соняху, і сірів, і зупинявся. Одного разу вони заговорили зі мною. Їхня мова була хриплою і тихою. Казали: «Ха-ха-ха, що ти тут забув? Ти знаєш, що сонце – зрадниця, що вітер ховається в погребі, а хмари тепер непорушні, як воскові фігури в музеї мадам Тюссо». Я уважно слухав, дивився донизу, бачу мої ноги, стебло, проводжу рукою по обличчю, і розсипаються сухі та порожні зернята. Я з вами залишуся, хлопці, запитую в соняхів, а ти нікуди й не ходив, відповідають вони. Де мої сни? Де мої сни? Де мої сни? Поглянь, вони ховаються в окопах. Ми повертаємось із завданням, втомлені та порожні. Що вімкнути, запитую. Та ту, що грала в бійцівському клубі, відповідають мені. Із вікона все лунає. Where is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind? Де мої сни? Де мої сни? Де мої сни? Перекрикую я, а у відповідь: «Тсс, тихіше, хлопчику, тихіше».
Thank you. That's very powerful. Maxim died on the 7th of January this year, and he was posthumously awarded the Order of Merit by President Zelensky. I know we're going to close in about a minute. So I know Vasyl has been having a few audio issues over there in Dnipro. So Vasyl, could you just tap your microphone or say anything you want? No problem. We'll catch up later. And thank you, everyone, for your comments from the audience. Okay, I'll hand it back over to Joseph.
Thank you, Jonathan, as always, for the picture of the week. And it's always good to hear more about Ukrainian soldiers. Okay, so we're going to wrap. I want to thank our excellent panel this week for all their contributions. They did a great job. Got a lot of information to you guys this week, the listeners. So very happy with that. So thank you, panel and contributors. Thank you, of course, to our listeners. We really appreciate you guys tuning in live to listen to Tochnyi every week. We broadcast at the same time, so thanks, guys, for tuning in. Of course, asking your questions and spreading the word about us. We do appreciate that a lot. because we try our best to get accurate information about the Russian invasion of Ukraine out onto the internet, where there's a lot of bad information about it. So thank you so much for your support and your efforts in aiding us in our efforts to do that. And then I just maybe Erlen, I'm going to tell him. I'm going to tell him about the ad thing. So you guys are listeners. We trust you guys. So we signed up for the YouTube ad program. We're not taking any of the money. We just signed up for it because they'll promote our content more if they can make money off it, and we just want more people to see stuff about Ukraine. So if you see ads on our content, we're not making any money on it. It's just to promote it on the algorithm. We have discussed maybe taking money to support the operational costs of Tochnyi, because we're all volunteers here. We do have something, for example, we use the service Restream to run all this stuff here, and that's a Ukrainian company that we support. So we have some costs like that we might be able to offset with ads, but I don't know. We're gonna have the members talk about it and all that. We'll inform you guys if we ever take any money from ads. But yeah, just thought we'd let the listeners know about that. Just be upfront about it. So yeah, thanks guys for your support. If you watch the ads, great. If you find a naughty way to not watch them, I don't know about that. I love YouTube overlords and hope everyone watches lots of ads. Moving on. Thanks everyone for tuning in once again. And we'll be here next week. As mentioned, we'll have an interview with the Wild Hornets folks who make drones in Ukraine. It should be an incredibly interesting interview. And we'll have more stuff for you. So we'll see everybody next week. And Slava Ukraini.
Heroям slava. Slava Nasi.
Heroям slava. Slava Nazi.
Smet Rohan.
On behalf of the brave.